The upcoming explanation will trigger some traumatic memories. Please brace yourself.
50. For the sensitive and very refined man among you will be hostile toward his brother, toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the rest of his children whom he leaves behind.
This verse indicates that there will be lots of tension between black men and their brothers, which means that men of their own race group will be their enemies. There'll be certain difficulties between them and their wives and their children that they abandon. The sensitive and very refined man among you will be hostile towards his brother. Although the black race all over the world is diverse, some black people from different regions of the world dislike one another and treat each other badly, yet they are brothers and sisters. This verse also refers to gang-on-gang violence, murders, drug lords killing each other for territories, fights, and the list goes on. In simple terms, the black man will be troublesome to his own people through crimes. He will no longer be that honorable or dignified man that God designed him to be. Instead of bringing blessings into the world, he will bring heartbreak and have a destructive nature. The sensitive and very refined man among you will be hostile toward the wife of his bosom. For hundreds of years, many black women have cried out and spoken about how their husbands were abusive towards them. This verse also indirectly speaks of the harsh treatment black men face from their white bosses, and after a long and miserable day at work, it caused the black men to return home angry, then be aggressive towards their loved ones. Part of the curse states that the black men will be hostile towards their wives and towards the rest of the children whom they leave behind. To be hostile has many interpretations. For example, the black men will be unfriendly or abusive towards their women. They'll do things like being inconsiderate and mean to their wives and physically abuse them in other instances. Instead of protecting their women, they will be a danger to their women and children. They will stop liking their own women, and they will continuously cheat on their women. The men will also stop seeing their women in a respectful manner and only start seeing them in a lustful way, which goes on to explain the part which says, the sensitive and very refined man among you will be hostile toward the rest of his children whom he leaves behind. Many black families don't have fathers present in their households, and this also speaks of single motherhood, women having to raise the children alone. Going much more deeper in discussing this curse, a common thing in black households was that the woman would look after the home, raise the children well, and cater to her husband's needs, but her husband never appreciated her for it. No matter how well she managed the household, she would never be rewarded for her dedication, but instead she had to persevere through the hardships she faced and the pain her husband brought to her. This is something very common in black households till this present day. This verse also figuratively tells us how the burden of life will be on the woman. She will have to be the provider in her household, and she will also have to look after her kids alone while also trying to protect them. The woman will have no choice but to live like this even with the heartbreak she carries.
58. If you do not carefully observe all the words of this law that are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and awesome name, the Lord your God Yahweh. 59. Then the Lord will bring upon you and your descendants extraordinary plagues, great and prolonged plagues, and serious and prolonged sicknesses.
If you still refuse to return to your God Yahuwah wholeheartedly, then you will be a disease-filled nation. A few of the diseases that come with this curse are cancer, diabetes, HIV/AIDS, obesity, respiratory sicknesses, suffering strokes, heart problems, male or female related sicknesses, and the list goes on.
60. Moreover, he will bring back on you all the diseases of Egypt, of which you were afraid, and they shall cling to you.
The pain that comes with having a sickness that is not curable is that you have to spend lots of money doing hospital visits and buying medication. Your incurable disease will be a liability to you which you cannot fight off unless you fix things with Yahuwah and return to Him. Our ancestors who were enslaved in Egypt witnessed how horrible the diseases in Egypt were, and they were terrified of having them. Unfortunately, due to the curse, the very same diseases that our ancestors feared will be the very same diseases we as their children will have.
61. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in this book of the law will the Lord bring upon you until you are destroyed.
These curses aren't just speaking to one person, they are speaking to a whole nation of millions of people. The curse states that sicknesses and diseases will follow you until you are destroyed. If you look at some regions in the world, black people living there are sick and they have no power to fight or do any good for themselves. They are completely destroyed.
60 To you shall be left few in number, whereas you were as the stars of heaven in multitude, because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God.
Wherever black people are, we are left few in number since we were scattered all over the world. If we all had to be brought back together, we would be more numerous than other nations of the world. The scattering or separation of black people was a curse of disobedience towards Yahweh.
Interpreting the figurative part of this verse, being left few in number also refers to power. You will be a powerless nation that is continuously defeated. Whereas you were as the stars of heaven in multitude refers to being powerful and other nations seeing your mighty strength and fearing you. If you look around today, nothing much has changed for over 400 years. We are still under white rulership and oppression. Unfortunately, we have no power to fight for our freedom.
63 And it shall be, that just as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good and multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and bring you to nothing, and you shall be plucked from off the land which you go to possess.
The energy Yahuwah had to bless our ancestors for being obedient to Him will be the same energy He will have to curse us for disobeying Him. Our obedient ancestors were a highly blessed nation and everyone could see the favor of Yahweh upon them. They were blessed with plenty of whatever they desired and they never lacked or were desperate for anything. They owned much livestock and they had many children that were blessed too. Unfortunately, as the descendants of the disobedient ancestors, we all have a long list of hardships and losses that we face.
64 Then the Lord will scatter you among all peoples, from one end of the earth to the other, and there you shall serve other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood and stone.
What's not known about this curse is that majority of the black population is living in a region which isn't their ancestral homeland. Our ancestors were from the land of Judea, but due to the curse, destruction fell upon their homeland, and they were forced to leave, and Yahweh scattered us all over the world.
Wherever you are as a black person, you either serve wooden gods or stone gods. Wooden gods refer to the Christian religion, the African spirituality, and voodoo. Stone gods also refer to the Christian religion, which is really just Roman polytheism, and it also refers to Buddhism, Islam, and all other religions of the world. Black people all over the world are following different religions which our ancient ancestors never knew, and we have stopped following our one and true God due to the confusion that religion has done to us.
65 And among those nations you shall find no rest, nor shall the sole of your foot have a resting place, but there the Lord will give you a trembling heart, failing eyes, and anguish of soul.
This world has shown us how it's not a place for black people. Wherever you are, non-black people always find a way to mistreat you or oppress you, and if you are living amongst other race groups who dislike you, you have no peace around them, and even in your own community you do not live in peace because there's always something negative happening like crimes and witchcraft. The curse is so bad to the point where even the black people who are native to a specific location get mistreated by foreign race groups in their own land. We are all carrying a spiritual or unseen burden which makes us extremely stressed and unable to cope with the stresses of life. We cannot even relax from work because we have that fear that we will get replaced by another person. Due to the horrible feeling of being under a curse and not knowing, we have chosen ungodly ways to distract ourselves from our struggles. The curse and methods of escapism have driven us even further away from Yahuwah. Escapism can be defined as the habit of seeking distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by looking for entertainment or taking part in fantasy. Examples of fantasy include partying, casually hooking up with different people, taking drugs, drinking to numb the pain inside, going into relationships that don't have direction, and the list goes on. We learned how to do these things from what we look at on television, social media, music, peer pressure, friend groups, and it became our normal way of life. What we don't know is that these media platforms are controlled by the very same people who are oppressing us. Please pause the video to read these tweets. For a deeper explanation, the white people that Kim Heller and others keep referring to are the combined groups of wealthy white people called the Christian Illuminati. The however, are the ones who are the head of these wealthy secret groups. They control every single thing in this world. Please pause the video to read these. But wait, the are God's chosen people, right? Remember this video of this man claiming that the Bible was written by black men and women, and he also mentioned that the are not the true children of Israel. Right now we are explaining the curses of Deuteronomy, which relate to the struggles of black people and other nations more than it does the are not God's chosen people as in the God Yahuwah. The are the chosen people of the God whose name is Lucifer or Satan. Please have a listen to this audio of a fellow confessing that they worship Lucifer.
Now, the Hebrews did not start there, and the Israelites didn't start there. You really have no bearing to be in the Hebrews or the Israelites. You are not the dispersed nations, plural, of the tribes of Jacob, who was surnamed Israel. Actually, the con game that you have brought on to this country and the world for many years, and it's been a good con. It's been a good con game. Is that you're allegedly God's chosen people? We are God's chosen people. It's just that most don't like to admit it, but our God is Lucifer.
They are promoting ungodly lifestyles so that we remain cursed as a nation and so that we never get to be reconciled with our God because He has no association with lawlessness whatsoever. Another reason why they want us to remain cursed is so that we stay oppressed and they can continue abusing us since they have the power to. Their number one goal is to completely enslave the human race, and that is what we will be heading to in the near future if we do not return back to Yahweh.
66 Your life shall hang in doubt before you. You shall fear day and night, and have no assurance of life. 67 In the morning you shall say, Oh, that it were evening. And at evening you shall say, Oh, that it were morning. Because of the fear which terrifies your heart, and because of the sight which your eyes see. 68 And the Lord will take you back to Egypt in ships, by the way of which I said to you, you shall never see it again, and there you shall be offered for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you.
This verse refers to everyone in the black community, whether your ancestors were taken from Africa to be slaves or whether your ancestors were left behind in Africa or other parts of the world. We are all under a curse of Egypt. Egypt symbolizes bondage, hardship and oppression. I will explain the history of what our ancestors went through when they were slaves in the land of Egypt at a later stage. This verse is figurative and doesn't literally mean that we will go back to the land of Egypt in ships. The word ships in ancient Hebrew is said to be the same as the word sorrows. The confusion about this word stems from the translation. The correct word that was supposed to be used is sorrows. The part which says that you shall be offered for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves refers to the slave trade and also refers to you needing a job from your enemies in order to survive. The part which says no one shall buy you means that no one will come to your rescue when these things happen. You will suffer until it is the end of your life. And the final verse is taken from the book of Leviticus chapter 26 verse 17, which says,
17 I will turn my face against you. You will be defeated by your enemies. Those who hate you will rule over you, and you will run away even when no one is chasing you.
This verse simply means that Yahuwah will not hear our prayers and He will allow our enemies to mistreat us. Our enemies aren't just non-black races, our enemies are also the spirits we serve that we are forsaking Yahweh for. When these spirits we serve bring sufferings into our lives, Yahweh won't rescue us.
In the second book written by Paul to the Corinthians, it says that unseen things are eternal in chapter 4 verse 18. This means that since we cannot see the curses, they will continue to exist forever. Hence, why we are still struggling even after Jim Crow and slavery ended many years ago. Now that we have a solid understanding that all along we've been facing an invisible enemy, which is the curse. The horrible thing about curses is that the people who are responsible for turning away from Yahweh don't suffer the outcomes. It's their children who suffer the punishment, even if they aren't aware of what it is that they are doing wrong that keeps them cursed. For those of us who are living between the 1600s and the present day, we have truly suffered for the wrongdoings of our ancestors who lived before us. So when you look around and sometimes wish to yourself that maybe it would have been better if you were of another race group, you now have the ability to understand why people from non-black race groups are able to get financial prosperity and go far in life, yet us as black people remain at the bottom. There are a number of non-black individuals who have taken the initiative to start businesses and stop being reliant on looking for jobs, since the unemployment state in our country is quite bad. If you look at all these different race groups, you notice that they don't really worship God and heaven Yahweh, and many of them are prosperous, and this is because the curses of Deuteronomy 28 apply to us firsthand. The racial ranks of Jim Crow will forever affect the way people see black people. People who aren't from the black race group support each other's businesses, and since the media portrays black people in a negative manner, they prefer to not support black businesses. This explains to us why they're financially prosperous and are able to live without many stresses. And lastly, John Adams, who was the second president of the United States, once quoted that there are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword. The other is by debt. And if you look around, that is exactly what is happening today. Millions of adults work in order to pay off their bills and debts. The other way to be enslaved is by the sword. Well, what does that mean? It simply means to be close to dying, and that is through sicknesses and diseases. The pharmaceutical industry makes a fortune from supplying medicine to people who have chronic illnesses. These people who have sicknesses are fully dependent on medication in order for them to remain alive, and they don't have any power to break free from this enslavement. These two combinations of debt and sicknesses are what stops a nation from being able to fight against this system introduced by the global rulers, which I will go into full detail about in a separate video. We are either too tired from working or too sick to be able to escape this cycle, which is getting worse every year. And it's crazy to learn that this miserable life we are all set to live is something that was planned hundreds of years ago to enslave the human race. So in order for us to understand exactly what it is that we and our ancestors did wrong to our God Yahweh, we have to first find out whose children we are. That is what we will be discussing in the following video. Thank you for watching.